is offering us a great opportunity to get together, to understand each other, to find solutions in the face of hate, and to develop a diverse community with a shared future. So thank you again. Thank you for coming. So I will pass this mic to my colleague, Lily. Hello, everyone. I will be back up here just in case it's wrong. My name is Alicia. On behalf of the Chinese American Association of Cambridge, I want to thank you all for coming today to protest against hate crimes towards Asians and against hate racism of all forms. During the past 12 months, while the overall crime rate decreased in the United States, hate crimes towards Asians grew over 150% in this country. While in some large cities such as New York City, hate crimes towards Asians increased over 1,900% in October, according to the NYPD data. Prejudice and hatred grow like a tumor. They may start the community.
First time I ever heard that happen in Suez
To the senseless murder of 6 innocent women of Asian descent.
Suez Canal. It's
This malignant tumor did not stay constrained but cemented. It quickly, in 12 months, infiltrated physical action and now threatens our lives. Silence is complicit. We must confront racism of all forms, big or small. In order to prevent malignancy from growing out of control, your participation in allowing today not just support, it is your action to help stop the metastases of this dangerous malignancy. That is racism. Racism tears apart the fabric of the American society. It runs against the American creed that all men are created equal. It erodes the American spirit. It must be defeated and rooted out. The recent string of violence against Asians has generated much doubt, anger, and fear among many of our fellow Asians. Anger and fear do not drive out violence. We must unite together. Asians, African Americans, Latinos, Native Americans, whites, and Hispanics must unite together to stand up to prejudice and racism, to fight against injustice and violence. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. The only limit to our realization of tomorrow will be our doubts of today. We all remember this famous words from FDR that lived
and the situation is complex. But one thing that is very certain is that we have to acknowledge our history. In the past in the U.S., as we've confronted foreign enemies, we've done violence to our domestic populations who are imagined, and I say imagined, to be connected with those enemies. The way that our leaders talk about China scares me now. When people in powerful positions, whether political, in schools, or in companies, talk about Asian or Asian Americans as less trustworthy, they're saying they're not us. I'm here to say you belong here. Whether you were born here, like your parents or your grandparents who've been here for longer than I have, or whether you came here recently to build a life or get an education, you are part of the beating heart of our society. We can't control what happens in our country's foreign policy or what other countries do. But it's up to me and to each of us to protect our neighbors, our friends, and our fellow residents here in our community, in our country. And that means standing up against racism, large and small. When someone silences someone because they can't tolerate an accent, when someone remarks that a whole group of people is brainwashed, or when someone gives me more career opportunities because I'm white, it's racism. A friend of mine told me last week that she's glad our society is finally recognizing racism and hate towards Asians and Asian Americans. I hate that it took us this long, and it took this violence to stand up and stand together. But to all of you who've endured this, small and large, I promise to stand with you and stand against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Meg. So, our next speaker is Michelle Chen. Michelle is a Cambridge-born second-generation immigrant and is currently a freshman at Lewis Tech. Michelle. Hey, where are you from?
See the
No,
twins over there?
where are you really from? I'm from America. Right. I'm American. I saw that. I'm Chinese. I belong here just as much as you do. I gaze at the same stars you do. I breathe the same air that you do. I live on the same earth that you do. We're human. But still, where are you from? Suddenly becomes go back to where you came from, which becomes we don't want you here. Which becomes we're going to assault you because of the way you look. Which becomes we're going to shoot you because we had a bad day. Maybe I won't go outside today. I am an Asian female. We are stereotyped as weak, compliant, helpless. In our culture, in the face of bias, bigotry, or brutality of any kind, we are taught to turn the other way. Ignore it. Don't get involved unless you absolutely have to. People think that we are incapable of retaliation. Another green flag for them to harass us. They pull up the corner of their eyes. We look away. They ask, "Oh my God, do you eat dogs?" We laugh awkwardly and say, "No, of course not." We are conditioned to live in this little bubble where we don't speak up ever. But we don't have to be quiet. We shouldn't. Speak up. Stand out. Disrupt the racist patterns buried in our society. Root them out. Embrace the discomfort. Step out of your comfort zone. We are done being quiet because we are being murdered. We are being murdered. We are being next speaker is Michelle Oh. Our next Michelle is a Korean first-generation immigrant. She works in education technology research and development.
On the other side.
Michelle.
My Korean name is Jun Ju Oh. I'm standing here just to tell you a very simple truth. God created us very equal. My heart is breaking. And we stop feeling our heart and hate each other and kill each other. This is a curse. This is not the one that people should practice. Diversity is the beauty. Diversity is the power. The racial and ethnic difference is not hurt by God. Anybody who is a human and human heart should know and feel this. I'm very saddened when I read the article when people die and kill each other. Please should stop, and I was depressed. And ask yourself, this time, what should I do to stop this hurt? This is not right. We really have to. We really have to. Systematically, in your position, as an individual, everybody is beautiful. We are created that way. Difference is the beauty. What should we do? At this time, it's systematically how we're going to fight this wrong movement. This is the sin. I believe. I'm really asking yourself, every individual, please think what we can do to fight this. I pray in my heart to the Lord, this should be stopped. Love is the beauty. That's the only way that we can overcome this. I really pray that we really practice how to live each other. Otherwise, we perish. If we do not know how to live together, we perish. That's the significant consequence every individual will have to deal with. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Our next speaker is Isabel Lee. Isabel works at Political Research Association, the national think tank devoted to the mission for multiracial, feminist democracy. She has nearly 20 years organizing partners, Wooden Fish
Hello? Can you hear me? Yeah! Can you hear me over there? Yeah! Thank you. Political violence has a long history dating back as far as any of us know. Political violence is powerful and destructive because it permeates our lives on 3 levels. First, through social movements, individuals are influenced and encouraged to act on worldviews that aim to divide us. Second, through the state and institutions, individuals are encouraged to vote and write laws that aim to make the well-being of some communities more important than the other. And third, through culture, the most subtle yet deeply ingrained violence of all. Individuals are told ideas and narratives that turn us against each other, calling us to be other, not human, and undeserving of care. Political violence is vast and overwhelming. But every single one of us has the power to practice one act of resistance to this powerful force. That act is empathy. My mother is an immigrant from Taiwan who lives alone in Fresno, California. She cannot hear without a hearing aid. She cannot walk without a walker. She lives on a fixed income in an apartment complex in a low-income neighborhood that has gang activity and gun violence all around. Even before the increased violence against Asian Americans, fear of my mother's health and safety kept me up at night. Her neighbors are from a variety of racial and ethnic identities: Mexican, white, Black, Armenian. Over the last year, I haven't been able to visit, but these neighbors check in on her. They fix things for her. They water her plants on the patio, pick up her mail. Fresno County's government believes in caring for our elders and people with disabilities. The county pays for my mother's caregiver, a 28-year-old Chicana Mexican-American woman with 2 kids who comes every day to cook and clean for a few hours. She listens to my mom's broken English. She advocates for my mom at the doctor. She learned how to cook Taiwanese dishes for my mom when my mom was too depressed to eat over the last year. She does more for my mom than anyone else. Her act of empathy is not just a job. She listens and understands the suffering of an aging woman who feels hopeless and alone. She sees my mother's humanity. I have learned by watching her, and I take those lessons for my life here. All of us as individuals have the power to listen and understand the person who looks like they are angry or frustrated, the person who gets quiet after something was said to them, paying attention, taking responsibility to ask, to listen, and find ways to help. Advocate for laws that help each other. Tell the stories that lift each other up and don't tear us down. Share the pain so it's less of a burden on one person. All of this begins with self-empathy. We all get angry and frustrated. What are we really angry at? What is the source? What is at the root? Take a moment to see. At Wooden Fish Foundation, we are practitioners of humanist Buddhism. Through deep personal reflection and taking responsibility for our actions, we aim to inspire cultural peace. We denounce violence of all forms. We stand by all who have experienced pain and suffering at the hands and words of violence. And we ask for those who feel moved to act on violent thoughts, to practice radical self-empathy. The pain and suffering you feel will not be healed through violence. The Sanskrit term samsara means the cycle of living and dying, but it truly means vicious circle. We need to liberate from samsara, out of this vicious circle. We all have a role to play in healing our communities through understanding not just cultural differences of all kinds, but to have compassion for each other when we are suffering. Thank you.
she is a brilliant bilingual speaker, event host, and blogger writer. Held by the Boston Globe as a Sino-American cultural ambassador, she also acts as the goodwill ambassador for the Flying Tiger Historical Association and is passionate about the diplomatic relationship between China and America. We really appreciate to have her here as one of our speakers to today's event. Hi, I'll hand over to you.
I am humbled and honored to speak here today, to stand in solidarity with the Asian and Asian American community, and to give voice to all those who stand united in the fight against discrimination and hate that still fills the streets of our blessed country. When I was asked to speak here today, my first impulse was to yield my time to some of my Asian American friends so they could tell their stories. For what are we as humans but a collection of our stories? Only through listening to their stories can we as a community, as a nation, deepen our understanding of their struggles, their fears, their hopes and dreams. And only through understanding can we begin to make lasting change. It is time for all of us to be better listeners, even for those of you who consider yourselves good listeners. Allies, the message from the Asian and Asian American community is to lean in and listen a little more fully. To listen not only with your ears, but to listen with your hearts. Even as someone who has been moving between two languages and two cultures, that of China and the United States, for 2 decades, as someone who considers myself so woke that I do not belong to one culture over the other, but rather to neither and both at the same time, in the wake of the events of the last 2 weeks, I have come to realize the need, even in myself, to listen more fully. And so I spent my free time this last week listening to my friends and other members in the Asian American community here. My neurosurgeon, to whom I am grateful for my life. The chef in China Gourmet, who makes my absolute favorite, cannot live without mala xiangguo. The massage therapist, who have helped me heal from a neck injury years ago and have expressed so much care and concern for my well-being that I think of them as family. I ask them to speak and to share their stories with the hope of lifting up the dehumanizing veil that has been placed over too many in this country. To my dismay, they were afraid to speak. They were afraid to be seen. The words of one couple in particular struck hard. They moved here from China 15 years ago, leaving family and everything that was familiar to them behind. As small business owners who tag-teamed to run their business here in Cambridge, they worked tirelessly, spending precious time away from their children, 3 children, in hopes of making a decent living, and also of giving back. And yet they are afraid to walk down the street. They weep for the elders who continue to be assaulted due simply to the color of their skin. Most of all, they fear for what kind of world they leave behind to future generations. They also had one message they wanted me to share today. The wife and mother of the couple, who did not want to be named, said, even as she wiped a tear from her face, "We believe the vast majority of people have a good heart. We want what everyone wants, a better future for our children." Her words sounded a lot to me like the words of John F. Kennedy after the assassination of our dear Martin Luther King. He said, "The vast majority of people in this country want to live together, want to improve the quality of life, and want justice for all human beings who abide in our land." to the Asian and Asian American community, I say to you, your pain is not in vain. To the people who lost their lives in the Atlanta shootings, your lives are not lost in vain. Today here I too invoke the words of the brilliant Greek poet and playwright Aeschylus, who said, "In our sleep, pain which cannot forget falls drop by drop upon the heart until in our despair against our will comes wisdom." So let us turn the pain of perils past into the wisdom of the future. In the words of the Liberty Song, one of the first patriotic songs ever written for America, I say, then join hand in hand, brave Americans all. By uniting we stand, by dividing we fall. In so righteous a cause, let us hope to succeed, for heaven approves each generous deed. For all the generous deeds done today and in the past by those of Asian descent and those in the Asian community and Asian American community, we say thank you.
Thank you.
To the Asian and Asian American peoples who abide in this land, we honor you. We appreciate your contributions in the building of our country, in the making of diverse cultural fabrics of our society, and in the bettering of our communities and neighborhoods today. Because there is no way we can go forward except together. We will crown the good of our fellow Americans with brotherhood. And we must rise to action today. There can be no delay. If you are like me and appreciate the magic of Bruce Lee, and you see the magic of being like water, then I say today, be like water. And flood the streets and neighborhoods of America with kindness until they are so filled with love and respect that hate simply drowns away, suffocates. The call to action is to listen. Listen with your hearts to the stories of those in your community who are suffering, and share those stories with others. The call to action is to speak, to take action, to crown the good of your Asian neighborhoods, of your Asian neighbors with brotherhood. To say, thank you. We hear you. We appreciate you, and we stand with you.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Now I would like to invite Emily Chen, who is our 7th generation Chinese immigrant from Western Bronx, and she's 7th grade this year.
Hi, my name is Emily Penn, and I am a 7th grade student. I want to thank the Chinese American Association of Cambridge for giving me this opportunity to speak today, and our non-Asian allies for supporting and standing with the Asian American community. Standing here, I want to call out the inequalities our community has faced by starting with what many of you may know as simply the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Some kind of dance.
For many of us, our daily routine starts by reciting this at school. We stand up, salute the flag, and repeat after our principal in the loudspeaker. For me, who was born here, this is what I was taught and what I believe. However, saying liberty and justice for all and actually having that happen in real life are two different things.
Ever since this pandemic started, there's been a surge in people calling the virus post flu and it will bring along with the anger is the recent 1,900% increase in Asian Americans. There are people who have been attacked and even killed in our country just because of their skin color and ethnicity. Yet I am still supposed to repeat the pledge every single day in school with pride and dignity. In the past 250 years, our country has enjoyed the contributions of immigrants from all over the world who have different cultures, ideas, and backgrounds. However, the achievements of Asian Americans here in the U.S. don't seem to be acknowledged. Boeing's first aeronautical engineer, Chong-Ku, came from Taiwan. The World Trade Center, National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C., and even our own John F. Kennedy Presidential Library and Museum in Boston were all created by I.M. Pei, a Chinese-American architect. YouTube was co-founded by Asians. Dr. Quan Ho Minh, a Vietnamese immigrant, pioneered the development in cancer detection methods. Asian American fashion designer Vera Wang had a clothing worn by Michelle Kwan, Mariah Carey, Victoria Beckham, and even Michelle Obama. Do you love ice cream? Well, thank Ernest A. Hanley, a Syrian concessionaire, for popularizing it in the U.S. And don't forget the beloved Asian cuisine, which were brought to the U.S. by Asian immigrants. These are just some ways Asian Americans have enriched our everyday lives and impacted American culture. However, even though we have contributed to society in so many ways, there is still continued discrimination against us. Today, I want to say that this deeply seated bias towards the Asian American community should not be tolerated. We are tired of being the target of discrimination and hatred. I'm calling on everyone here today and everyone in our nation to appreciate the contributions of our communities, recognize the hardships we have gone through, and stand together to fight against these adversities, just like the pledge says. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emily. Now I'd like to invite Janice, who's our second generation Chinese immigrant from Wellesley.
Hi everyone. Hi. My name is Denise Tan, and I just want to start off by thanking everyone for coming to this event. It's so important for all of us to stand together, united, especially during troubling times like this, where our people are getting beaten, robbed, and killed. I want to share a little quote that has stuck to me since the first time I heard it. A person without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. Marcus Garvey. This quote stood out to me because I can relate to it in many ways. When I was younger, I was embarrassed of my Chinese heritage, and I wanted to distance myself from it, whether it was with my language or anything else. Thinking back to it just makes me feel so terrible and sad. But the reality is, there are other Asian and POC kids just like me who have experienced this, and it's because of something called racial imposter syndrome. To everyone who's experiencing this right now, do not ever forget about your roots and your origin. Do not let society take away your identity and who you truly are. Today, I want to speak about my
your last
experience
public
with racism.
words.
I
feel like I need to speak up for not just me, but for anyone else who has experienced racism but is too scared to speak up. Talking about your experience is super important because not only does it go against the Asian stereotype that we are quiet and polite people, but it also inspires and it encourages others to do the same. We need to stand up and speak about our experiences so everyone can hear us because we will not be silenced any longer. I will now talk about my encounter with racism. It was a year ago in March during the lockdown. I was walking outside next to my neighborhood, but as I was walking, a car started driving slowly behind me and started to pull up next to me. At that moment, I was very scared because I had started hearing news about hate crimes rising against Asians, and I thought to myself, am I next? The passenger window opened and the person in the seat rolled down the window and they spit on me. I was shocked. How could it happen to me? And in a town like Wellesley? My story is just a fragment, a little piece of thousands and thousands and thousands of hate crimes happening to AAPIs. So I encourage all of you to talk about your confrontations with racism and hate crimes. The one big thing I want everyone to take away is to not be scared and to be proud of your voice and who you are. Because I would have never thought that I would be a target, but I was. So anyone else could be next. So please, stand up and speak out.
Hey everybody, can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. So my name is Heather Marie Lockwood. This is my wife, by the way, who keeps circling and Okay, now that she's out of the way. So my name's Heather Marie Washburn, and I was asked to come and speak on behalf of the Wooden Fish Foundation. I also go by my Dharma name, which is Paul Muet. I am a Buddhist in the Chinese Mahayana tradition. So what I have found in this community is love, support, and mostly compassion. And I'm here to say that I stand with you. You are not alone in this. Now here's a story that blew my mind, and I want everybody to really listen to this. A very, very dear friend of mine, a Chinese woman, recently told my wife and I that we were her first Chinese friends. Okay, so we're her first Chinese friends. I said, great. How long have you been here? 25 years. That is not okay. 25 years and never having had a relationship with an American? Americans, guys, we need to do better. We need to do a lot better. So I'm talking to the people in the crowd that look like me, okay? Reach out to those that are around you. Support the AAPI community through friendship and business. Do business with the community. Allyship, guys. Allyship is everything, right?
Yeah!
Want to have your minds blown, people that look like me? Language barriers, they really don't exist. What? When your heart is open, they don't exist. So change your mind. There's a space that exists without language. And this is the space of love, fight and light. Do not be passive in the face of violence that we see going on around you. Be vigilant. It is time to connect. We need an evolution, not a revolution. We need to change the way we think. Woo! So don't let the hateful acts of others incite fear in your heart or your mind. Break the barrier. Fight back. Fight the system that is tolerated. Privileged people getting away with crime. Stand up. Speak out. Use your privilege to end privilege. Woo! Okay, now guys. I got something cool to do with you guys. So what I want to leave you guys with is a Buddhist blessing. Ami Tafel, okay? I want you all to say it with me, okay? So it goes like this. Ami.
Ami.
Tafel. Let's do it 3 times together. Ami. Tafel.
Ami.
Tafel.
Ami. Tafel.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Compassion is everything. Make the connection. We're right here. Make the connection. Thank you, everybody. Yes, they were.
Thank you so much, Heather. That was really inspiring. Now I'd like to invite Lucas Dill, who is our high school student.
No, and it needs to. There's, this stuff is crazy. But I actually Are you speaking or are you here to support?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Oh my God. Wow, you're great.
Let me just give you a little tip. One of the girls that I call his bachelor,
Oh, really? Hey, this is my friend Cam and his baby Roots.
Oh, this is the best job I've ever had.
Oh, yeah. We're the friends
Charles
already.
Sumner was an abolitionist and anti-colonialist. And he really suffered for his principles. So pass by sometimes.
Oh, I will. I'm always in the square. I just happen to scoop.
And especially in these
Thank you
recent
so much
weeks,
for coming.
have taught me that the only thing we can do as Asian Americans is to project our voices and make ourselves heard. We may only be 5% of the American population, but that does not mean our voices are any less significant. We must not let the model minority hit us against other minority groups in America. And we must not let our identities be engulfed by stereotypes. Today, and for all days going forward, we as Asian Americans must fight against the stereotype that says we are quiet and don't speak up. Let all of the world know that with our voices and with our passion, we will stop Asian hate together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lucas. And now I will invite our next speaker, Daniel Wells, and he is a second-generation immigrant and a high school student in
One
Cambridge.
of the world's greatest He was an abolitionist, anti-colonialist, always supported the most vulnerable. Pass by sometimes, tip your hand or just acknowledge them. Find inspiration,
I don't have a speech today, so I'll just speak from the heart. My name is Daniel. I'm a junior. I came to this country 6 years ago as a first generation. And it surprised me that as Joseph Powell have heard of the book I Have Heard as a 10-year-old. You'll be on my last name, what I had for lunch. I was the only Indian high school Ladies and gentlemen, friends and family, no 10-year-old should have to speak up against racism by themselves. But unfortunately, that is what I had to do. Slowly but surely it worked. I mean, it took me like 2 years, but I eventually found the courage to confront those guys and girls who were racist to me. And really what I learned from that is words matter. Because thoughts turn into words and words into action. And that has been seen no clearer than in the past years. All the hate and all the violence, physical acts against Asian Americans. The boys and girls who are racist to me back in health back knows that these are the people who grow up to be citizens for our next generation. How we teach our children matters, and that must start from a young age. Now, words matter, that has also been seen on a much larger scale. President Trump started calling the coronavirus the Chinese virus about a year ago, March 2020. His thoughts have turned into words, his words have turned into words. This is when
Hold it.
Hold it, yeah. How long does this end?
Following the tragic death of 8 the Washington Post did not reveal the identity of their initial reporting. Only after 24 hours, we are severely underrepresented. While it is true, the thoughts turn into words, words turn into action. The inverse is also true.
Alright, I love you guys.
Turn into words,
Nice to meet you.
into thoughts. There can be no words, and we cannot change the thoughts of the American people without action. We cannot expect our leaders in the current administration to do so because we have to take action ourselves. We have to speak up. We have to make ourselves heard. We have been silent for way too long, and we will not be silent.
Thank you so much, Daniel. And as he said, we will never ever be silent again. Now I would like to invite Owen Johnson. He is a lifelong entrepreneur and a graduate from MIT. In his personal life, he works daily to be actively anti-racist and ally to those who have suffered in unfair judgment.
I can't hear that. Can everyone hear this? Okay. So I've been told I'm being followed by a comedian, so I will try to keep the humor low, but seriously. So I stand here today, and I was asked yesterday to come and speak, and I'm somewhat at a loss for words because there's so many things that could be said, but I think I want to start with acknowledging that I am aware that I am quite possibly one of the members of the most privileged class in the world right now. So I'm 6'1", I'm male, I'm white, I'm born in America, one of the richest countries in the world, and I count myself extremely lucky for that. I have not had to suffer many direct attacks on my identity, although I have had that happen to me, and I have witnessed that on many people. I grew up in Richmond, Virginia, in the South, in the 80s, and there was quite a bit of racism at that time, as there is now. So, from a very young age, I witnessed white people being racist against black people being racist against white people being racist against the 2 people of Asian descent, and 400 in my class in high school. So very minority at that time. And I didn't really truly understand racism until I went and studied abroad in Berlin, Germany in 1994. And in 1994, Berlin was open, and essentially everyone from the East, the Iron Curtain had fallen 5 years earlier, everyone was coming. Polish were coming to Germany looking for jobs, looking for a better life. And at that time, I saw, for the first time, white people being racist against other white people. And it didn't make sense to me at all. except all of a sudden I had a deeper understanding of racism and how it was occurring. And since then, I've seen a number of other types of racism. I've seen white people be racist against white people be racist against Latinos, white people be racist against blacks being racist against Latinos, Asians being racist against other Asians, Chinese not liking the Japanese because of history of World War II. And I think that I didn't really know what I could share other than my experience. And my feeling is that I come here kind of expressing my self-identity and perspective that only someone where I sit can share. And understanding one's self-identity, and my kids go to, again, I'm lucky enough that my kids go to a school where multiculturalism and racial justice is being taught every single day, and the language of self-identity and understanding who they are and who other people are is taught every single day from nursery all the way through 8th grade, and I've seen the power of it. And the only thing I will say is there is hope for this country. There is hope for the world. If people understand themselves, they are better at understanding other people. And I feel that we can hold our politicians accountable, both for using language that is unifying and not deriving their power from divisiveness and creating a false other, then we will go a long way towards helping the world heal and become unified. And I would encourage everyone to not tolerate power, not elect power. I've seen people clearly driving
I talked about how tall he was, so I'm going to stand on the thing here. There we go. How's everybody doing? Yeah! People behind me this time. How are you guys doing back behind me? There we go. We got people together. I want to thank the organizers. We should give the organizers a big round of applause for this whole event. I was born at Mount Auburn Hospital right down the road over there. And I spent the last 8 years before the virus in Beijing, where I was a stand-up comedian and a 相声 performer. 不知道大家有听相声的吗? Yeah! 有听相声的吗? We have some 相声 fans here. I wanted to share just a little story today because the issue is so big, the challenges are so real, and I just wanted to share a little bit of a positive example of anything that is going in the right direction and how that might be possible. I studied 相声, the traditional Chinese comedy, with a man named Ding Guangquan. And Ding Guangquan was a comedian in China who took foreign disciples, and through sharing what he knew about comedy and about China, I was able to learn about people that look different from me and have a connection with these people when I go onto the stage to perform with them and when I meet them here in real life. And what I took away from this situation is that each of us has that one thing that we do that's special about us that we can share with others. And when we share that with others, you forget what other people look like. You forget that all of these problems that we're having with the communication, and you're able to go and meet that person in a prison. And so for each of us, I hope that we can each look to see, I hope that we can each look to see what is that thing that we do that we can share with everybody. And when we do that sharing, we realize that we are all together. So I stand here in support with the Asian American Pacific Islander community today. Stand here in support with all the people who are organizing. I am here for you. My name is IJSE. My dad is here for you. Our family is here for you. We hear your voices. We're here for you when you need us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for participating in the event today, and also thank you so much for standing up and give us your wonderful speech and also sharing your story today. This year has been really difficult to us. Fear, anger, uncertainty. America is still America, but it's no longer felt that safe to us this year. Libby mentioned fear at the opening, and I want to stretch it a bit further now. Many of us and our ancestors came to the States seeking for a better life. The journey came to here, and to settle down here is so long, and fear has always been there. The fear of coming to a foreign land, the fear of not being to speak like the natives, and also the fear of adapting to a new society. We worked hard not only to meet individual and our family's expectations, but also to firmly place ourselves in the society that has been foreign to us before. Here, I want to send a personal thank you to those who came here as the first generation. You have accomplished more than you have ever thought. And thank you so much for doing that. The media has noticed our efforts. They emphasized it and gave us a mark, model minority. This term, however, has been toxic because it does not only create a separation between us and the other communities, but also create segregation among ourselves. Creating a model image in the society always comes with fear, stress, anxiety, anger, and also unhealthy comparisons. We fear that we are not qualified enough to speak for ourselves because we believe that there are always someone who's better than us. We also are stressed because we think if we fail to meet those expectations, we automatically become a shame to our group. And when there is a standard, we compare and we compare. The judgment resulting from this comparison generates further discrimination and is tearing us apart in this country we all live in today. This mark is also denying the fact that we, the Asian community, are just as diverse and complicated as the other communities. We have vulnerable groups. We have those who are the elders. We have those who are women, children, and also low-income workers. There's no difference between us and the others. And unfortunately, the groups that got attacked the most this year are these people, are these vulnerable groups in our communities. They're always part of our Asian community, and they're always part of this country's community. We are Asians, but we are also neighbors, friends, colleagues, someone you see every day. We hope that today's voice will be spread out and be heard loud and clear. We hope to celebrate the diversity together without fear. We all live in this land, sharing the same future. Our voice is your voice, and yours is ours. Now I'll hand back the time and the ground back to you guys. And we are going to stay here for a little longer, so if you are so interested in participating, we would like to invite you to stand along the road here and also across the street. Thank you very much.
All right, Isabella, right? Tim. Yeah. Nice to meet you.